And welcome to another episode of Patriots 4th and 2. Today, I am your host, Derek Havens. Joining me, as always, is Mr. Steve Balestrieri. We are both PatsFans.com bloggers. Russ Goldman will not be joining us today, but hopefully we can get him in soon. I'm sure he'll be chiming in with a couple of comments based off my commentary on the beginning of the show. We are discussing today, we're going through our draft prospect preview as Steve and I do annually. We started with defensive backs last week. Now we're going to the front seven for the defense, and then we'll move on to the offense next week. But Steve, first, how are you doing? But also, do you smell any smoke? Because there's a lot of it brewing around the Patriots right now.
I think it's a lot of smoke and mirrors. I really do. I'm not buying all this shopping Mac Jones thing at all. I'm really not.
Let's talk about this. People who are just real quick, Steve. I don't want to interrupt, but just real quick, we're going to talk about Mac Jones for like 5-6 minutes. Okay, we're going to spend most of our time on the draft, but we need to talk about a couple of these things. And give me your thoughts, because I'll just say this off the top: it's constant. I mean, it's every single day. There's a different national media personality with seemingly no connection to the Patriots talking about something. There's Patriots are shopping him. You know, it's they don't want him. Bailey Zappi could be the guy. I mean, it is a literal carousel. And tomorrow will be Colin Cowherd. Okay, I have no idea, but it just seems like every single day it's another guy.
Right, and if you look around the NFL, slow news day.
Yep,
they've been a lot of slow news days. So everyone's jumping on this, rumor mill that Mac is being shopped, and I go by actions speak louder than words. And, I don't think Florio has any sources in the building. He might have some with some other teams. But I look at what the Patriots are doing. They brought back Bill O'Brien, who was the offensive coordinator here, that should run basically the same system Mac had in his rookie season. And then they're trying to, bring talent around that caters toward Mac's strengths. And, bring in O'Brien. He also had the Alabama,
right,
thing with Mac Jones. So I'm just not buying it. I mean, we have I know we complain a lot about the media, but we have a lot of really good beat writers here.
Oh, yeah, we do.
For the Patriots. There's a slew of them, and they always catch wind of something. And I haven't heard one of those guys, not one, hearing the slightest whisper that, hey, the Patriots are shopping Mac.
I will say this, though, Steve. Okay, and I see I see Claire and Chris in the comments and a couple other people saying, it's all hearsay, and Claire says, boo, talk draft. I'm with you, Claire. I'm with you. She wants a link to join the show. We'll get you on when we talk tight ends. I want your take on tight ends. And we are due to talk. You and I. We haven't talked in a little while. But I will say this, though, Steve. Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick are partially to blame for some of this. And they are complicit. I don't care if you think it's all bullshit. I'm telling you right now, Robert Kraft talking about Meek Mill told him that Lamar Jackson wants to play. That doesn't do any favors for your young quarterback. What does that do? Besides just letting people know that, Meek Mill knows who you are, so, I don't know what that does for you. There was reports that, that Mac Jones will be traded over his dead body. I don't know. I mean, it's just one of those things where, if Bill just would come out and say, Mac Jones is our starting quarterback, Bailey Zappi, of course, is going to have a chance to compete for the starting job. But right now, Mac Jones is our starter, and Robert Kraft wouldn't say things like, Lamar Jackson, Jackson is interested in playing with us, then I don't think there would be so many things. They could shut this down. Instead, they continue to not shut it down. And I thought that our friends over at Patriots Unfiltered on Patriots.com, I thought they did a good job yesterday, or Tuesday, I should say, saying they always say like move on, like move on to the next, like, last year's behind us. It just seems like Bill quite hasn't moved on a little bit. And this is kind of I'm paraphrasing for them. I don't want to speak for them, but like, they basically said like Bill needs to basically move on from the drama that unfolded with whatever happened with Mac Jones last year, put it in the rearview mirror, say he's your starter, give him another chance, or you need to move on from him in general, because right now, Steve, I don't see this as being a productive thing. How can this be productive for Mac Jones and his wife? And like, you can't, he hears this stuff, people are like, he's probably like, what the heck? Like, I mean, this is not this is counterproductive in my mind. That's the thing that makes me the most frustrated.
Exactly. And I'll just leave it at this. I thought when he said that, and this is just my 2 cents, that I thought he was trying to show that New England is still a destination for a lot of players.
Yep.
And I think it was probably not the best way, the way he framed it. If he had framed it and said, "Hey, I heard from Meek Mill that Lamar Jackson wants to play for the Patriots," and it just goes to show that we're still a prime destination for players.
Yeah, and maybe that was his angle. And you know what?
But he didn't say it.
No, but he didn't say it like that. And Claire says they're not shutting things down because everyone's talking about the Patriots. That might be great for the Crafts. Okay, and that kind of leans to you, but I'll tell you right now, but Bill Belichick doesn't care if people are talking about the Patriots, and he could shut it down. So Kraft could still say what he's saying about that, and people could still be talking about the Patriots, and Bill could still shut things down, but he's not, and he doesn't care about the talk. So there's a reason for it, and I just can't figure it out what that reason is, Steve.
Right, and Bill's comment, that's typical Belichick. Oh, everyone's going to get a chance to compete, because he's not handing out jobs, in the spring. I mean, I think we all know that Mac Jones is going to be the starting quarterback if they don't trade him according to what Florio put out. But you know what I mean? I don't see Bailey Zappi making a big move on him.
No, I agree. I mean, definitely interesting though, Steve. Anyways, let's just move on. I don't think we really want to talk about this anymore. Let's talk about the front seven. Okay, let's talk about the
front seven.
Patriots have a slew of players visiting today, including Georgia's Nolan Smith, who I think is fascinating as a prospect. And I think that when people think of Patriots needs, I think in some combination, a lot of people I think are mostly aligned with, again, no particular order, cornerback, tackle, maybe receiver. I think edge is a sneaky need, Steve. Josh Uche in a contract year. Judon, is he a free agent after this year or next year? But he's in his early 30s, so either way,
he's got 2 years, this year and next.
Correct. Okay, correct. But I think he's 31, right? So So you have a guy who's in his early 30s who has 2 years left, and another guy who came on strong for you, Steve, who's going to be a free agent after next year. And I think they could look at edge. I really do. I don't know if they'll go linebacker. I think that what they have with Bentley, who, by the way, is also a free agent next year, and what they have with their versatility and safeties, I could see that. I could see them kind of utilizing some of those guys down in the box. But I definitely would not rule out. I would definitely not rule out an edge player early in this draft.
No, I mean, I wouldn't rule it out completely. I mean, if somebody falls down into their lap, I think they'll jump, especially if it's a guy that they have. Excuse me. We all know the Patriots have a notoriously very small draft board. So, I think if somebody that they really like slides somehow, they'll jump.
Yep. I totally agree. So let's start off with just guys, and we'll do it kind of like we did it, before. We'll just start with kind of edge players. Is there anyone up top at 14 that you would consider? I mean, there's obviously, a lot of, there's a lot of kind of edge players in this class, and some really, really good ones. Like Will Anderson is one of the best players in this class, hands down. Terrific player. He's going to be a top 5 pick. Okay, it's not happening.
You mean he's not falling to 14?
No. But if he even falls close to 8 or 9, I'm calling. And I'm like, let's figure this out, because he's a player who I would say is quote unquote a blue chip player in this class. Who do you like realistically for them potentially in this edge class?
I found it intriguing that they brought in Nolan Smith because he's traditionally, he has that athleticism that's off the charts.
Yep.
Which I really like. But, they usually like their edge guys like 255, in that range. And he's a little light for that. Although he graded out outstanding, against the run last year.
I'm looking it up. He weighed in at 238 at the combine at 6'2". So he's a little shorter.
Yep.
Like for the true I don't know if this is how Bill really views it. Okay, for the true elephant role, the Willie McGinnis role, Bill has traditionally liked closer to 6'4", 250. Okay, he's a little bit of a size queen. All right, but like 6'2", 238 is a little more closer to the modern range, especially when you run a sub 4.4 at that speed. I mean, he's sick athlete, 41 and a half inch vertical, 10.8 broad jump, a 1.52 10-yard split. You might not care about a 45-yard dash. How about 10 yards in 1.52 seconds at 6'2", 240? Like, the guy is an athletic,
That's why,
marvel.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I'm not really interested, especially for edge guys in the 40, because if your edge guy has to run 40 yards for the quarterback,
you're in trouble.
You're in trouble. But I love that 10-yard split because that shows the speed off the line, shows explosion. That's what I like. That's kind of where I go first. I mean, we all love to see the guys run the 40, but to me, the tape and the 10-yard split are really important.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I just got distracted because Dante Scarnecchia was named by Robert Kraft as a 2023 inductee as a contributor, to the team for the Team Hall of Fame. So that was cool. I just thought I'd mention that. Chris mentioned that to me earlier. I was waiting. Not that I didn't believe you, Chris, but we got a lot going on, and I wanted to wait for the team announcement, and they just broke it. So, awesome for Dante. I mean, totally well deserved. I know this is kind of an aside here, but definitely, who loves Dante more than you, Steve?
I don't know. I mean, I watched him coach for so many years. We sat in the stands and watched them there, at training camp and mini camps and whatnot. Then see him. I mean, he's very animated during practice, and he runs the hills with the players. Or ran the hills. He doesn't anymore. But to watch a guy of his age still running with the young guys, he was just incredible. And I remember one day he walked up into the crowd there at training camp. I can't remember what year it was. I think it was like 2017. And he was talking with all the media guys on the hill. And I thought that was super cool. But yeah.
I met him very briefly when back when we were all together, covering camps a lot in person. And I talked to him for maybe a minute. It wasn't a long conversation, but he was just so genuine. He's just like such an easy person to talk with. And he was a good guy to talk with, and
he loves football.
Yeah. I mean he was pride away. He left and he came back. I mean, what more do you have to say? No disrespect to Dante, but I do want to keep talking about the front seven. So Nolan Smith, we started with him. He's visiting today. We talked about the split, the athletic freak mindset. If you are curious what he could potentially bring to the table, I would ask you to go watch Georgia's game versus Oregon this year and just watch clips of him in that game.
Yeah,
and you'll
he was
be like
dominant. Now, if they decide not to go with Smith or he's gone and
Yep.
they really wanted an edge guy early, another guy I like is Miles Murphy from Clemson.
So I'm glad you brought him up, Steve. I'm glad you brought him up because I think that he is in a weird position from a standpoint that I've seen him as high as right out of the top 5, and I've
Right.
seen him fall into the teens. So
Yep.
I think he's in the conversation there. Give me your thoughts on Miles Murphy.
Well, I got my notes here. He's more the traditional size they like.
Yes.
He was first team All ACC. He had 11 tackles for loss, team high, 6.5 sacks, 3 passes defense, and forced fumble. That's pretty good production there. And
Right.
I just, I like, what he brings to the table, and
he kind of has like that Dietrich Wise frame in terms of,
yes.
I don't know, but let me check his arm length, but I don't know if he has arms like that. But I mean, 33 3/4 inch arms are pretty good, but 6'5", 268 he weighed in. I mean, that's a big boy. I mean, that he's I mean, you're using him on the edge, and he was productive like that. But it'd be interesting to see. We talk about like what Bill wants. Well, he'll tell us what he wants. Someone like a Nolan Smith, and I'm only bringing him back up so I can make the compare. Like, I think you can move him around a little bit more, but he might be a little too light on the edge. Where I'm not sure how much Miles Murphy can be moved around. It's 6'5", 268, 270. So that's an intriguing thing, Steve. Like, what kind of defense do they see for themselves? Do they see them locking Miles Murphy and be like, he can be really good for us in this role? Or do they look at a chess piece like Nolan Smith that they can kind of move around the board a little bit?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, they like having those guys that can, those big physical guys that can take the punishment and set the edge. And I think he'd be able to do that. You were talking about, Matthew Judon and, Josh Uche, which Uche's really, I don't consider him a 3-down player, but they have another big guy like that in Anthony Jennings. But you look at it, maybe they want to, limit, not limit, but temper Judon's, snaps during the season so he's fresher at the end of games. And when you have a guy that's that big, that physical, and will set the edge and can still get after the passer, that's something that you can work on. And he's a young kid, so.
No, I definitely agree. I mean, I think there's one other person we should probably talk about in this first round conversation, and that's Iowa's Lucas Van Ness. Obviously, you have the Ferenc Belichick connection. This guy is, I mean, he was nicknamed Hercules by his teammates. Okay, I mean, he reminds me a little bit of George Karlaftis from last year, but I mean, he needs to fill out a little bit, but he is he is a pass rusher, and he is, talk about a motor. I mean, he is just so quick, such a fluid athlete. Big frame, nice, and he fires out of a cannon, Steve. I mean, I wouldn't be jumping up and down if they drafted. Okay, for one, before I say this, Chris said, in your position, has edge gone up and down on your list? I don't know where you'd rank it, Steve. I would rank it somewhere between 4 and 5. You could talk me into tight end or edge, given the fact of the contracted players that they have at that position. So I would put it a range of 4 and 5, Chris. I don't know where you have it, Steve. Do you, not to put you on the spot, but
I have it the same as you. I think it's a solid 4.
Yeah.
Because we talked about tackle. I think tackle and cornerback are definitely top 2 needs for the team. They still need another receiver. It doesn't have to be a quote unquote number 1 receiver.
Yeah.
I've been pounding the dirt since the end of the season or last season, saying that they need a slot receiver with athleticism and quickness, because that in that Patriot style offense, that's what makes it go. Is that person going to be a quote unquote number one? I don't know. It was Wes Welker or Julian Edelman a number one.
To the rest of the league, no, but for the Patriots offense, it was. But it seems like they've almost strayed off that course, and I don't really understand why, because they were so good with it for so long. You can change if you don't want to use Josh's system and you want to switch things up, you can still have a player that does that. And Dante Scarnecchia, speaking of the devil, said that Mac needs that guy. And that guy is in the building today. Zay Flowers from Boston College. Let's go. We're not doing receivers, though, yet.
I loved how you just transitioned right into that.
I couldn't help it. I couldn't help it.
That was good. That was good. I thought that.
But no, so Chris, I think it's in the conversation. Again, I don't expect them to take an edge player at 14, but let's say all three of the top tackles are gone. Let's say there's a receiver there that they're not ready to take yet. They feel like maybe there's a couple players that they feel like it would be a little bit of a reach. They can't trade down, and Nolan Smith is staring them in the face. I could see that. Because don't forget this, that Bill Belichick and Nick Saban, when they were back in the Cleveland days, they worked together on a lot on defense. And who is a very direct descendant of Saban that has produced a lot of good defensive players that the Patriots have gone to the well before, and that's Georgia. So I put that asterisk by Nolan Smith's name for that reason. As much as we talk about the Ferenc Belichick connection from Iowa, he's only drafted one Iowa player. Okay, I'm not saying that means anything. Okay, I'm not saying that means anything. But it's just something to take. It's just something to consider. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, so Lucas Van Ness, Steve, I think this is a guy who I could see Belichick really, really liking. Maybe he's not like a full-time guy right away, but if they go edge at 14, they don't need him to be. They don't need that guy right away. But you can rotate him in with Uche on one side and Judon, and you got something there. I mean, that'd be a nice continuous pass rush to put pressure on opposing offenses and take pressure off your secondary.
Yeah, I like Van Ness. I assumed that he wasn't even going to be around by 14. I'm not sure, but again, you're talking about a big dude, 6'5", 270. So, he's got tremendous size, and for a guy that big to run a 4.5 in the 40, and his 10-yard split was 1.64. That's for a guy his size. That is really good. He can get off the ball, and I just I kind of had it in my mind. I kind of dismissed him because I just don't see him being around. But I wouldn't jump for joy if they took him, in a manner of speaking. But I think if they did take him at 14, you're getting a really good football player.
So I think you and I see similarly on this. But let me ask you this: when I say jump for joy, okay, like let's talk about the three guys that we just mentioned for the first round at 14: Van Ness, Murphy, Smith. Would you be like really, really happy with any of those? Like I think all three of those guys, I'd be like, okay, good football player. You know what I mean? Like I would be like, okay, good football player. I'm not sure I'd be thrilled depending on who's on the board, because I do think that other positions are more pressing. That would be kind of how I feel about it, Steve.
Exactly. I think that these guys are going to be around for a long time. I think all three of them, will have good NFL careers. But at the same time, I guess it depends on how they look at, each individual players. Do they think that one of these edge guys is going to be, something really special? I'm not going to mention any names of a guy that's playing in Buffalo right now, but do they think, do they think that one of these guys could be a similar type player? If so, then let's wait and see. But I would much rather them take an edge guy later on in the draft and go for one of the, top 3 needs that, in your opinion as well, of what they, what they really need. And I think some of those guys are going to be there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think of the top 3 guys that we've discussed, I think I would be most excited about Nolan Smith strictly because of the athletic ability that he possesses.
Freak.
The other guys are, they just don't have the same athletic ability that he does. And I think that if anyone was going to be quote unquote special, I think Smith might have that highest ceiling, even if his floor might be a little bit more questionable. But I honestly think he's gonna be a really good football player. Like I said, I just don't think that would be the best way to use the asset. But it'd be hard. Like let's just play it out for a second, okay? We talk about Broderick Jones, who's also a Georgia Bulldog and visiting the Patriots today, by the way. Broderick Jones from Georgia, Paris Johnson. I keep wanting to say Paris Campbell, but I'm mixing him up for Ohio State receiver versus Ohio State tackle. Paris Johnson. Then you have Peter Skoronski. And maybe Christian Gonzalez from Oregon and Devin Witherspoon from Illinois is gone. Well, so your top corners are gone. Your top tackles are gone. I'm not sold they would take a receiver at 14. It's like, well, I would almost rather take Darnell, and I know we're getting ahead of I'm getting ahead of ourselves. I shouldn't say you, it's me who's going off the rails here, but Darnell Wright, the tackle for Tennessee, the right tackle who I love. It might be sometimes might say it might be a little early for them. I would rather them go that direction, I think, than an edge rusher, because I just think he's a plug and play tackle for you for the next decade, and I think there's less risk there and a more immediate need. That would be me, but I don't know how everybody else is going to feel. But that's just kind of where I'm looking at. Again, I think that edge is on the table. Joel writes in the Pats should take an edge rusher in the 4th or 5th round. I agree. I think if they went with their first 3 picks and they took some combination of tackle, receiver, and corner, and then they came up with their next pass rusher or tight end, I think that would go right in line with it. And guess what? As it is every year, there will be another wave of free agency after the draft. There's a lot of good quality free agents, and a lot of people always wonder why it's not happening, because teams want to see how they can fill their young, cheap needs and how they can fill the positions in need with these kind of players, and then they'll circle back to the veterans. Okay, and that's what's going to happen. And so
a lot of the veterans don't want to sign until they see where teams are drafting too.
I mean, it's the Lamar Jackson situation is a perfect example. I expect Aaron Rodgers to be moved before the draft, but the Lamar Jackson situation is different. Let's say the quarterback carousel comes around and, the Colts are left, empty-handed. I have a feeling that Jim Irsay is going to try to do something bold. That's just my opinion.
The longer this Aaron Rodgers Jets thing plays out, the more I'm thinking somebody else comes in with a 12th hour deal for Green Bay and snatches that away from them.
Yep. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, not at all. Wouldn't be surprised in the slightest. But it seems like him and the Jets are done, but it's like, what's the holdup? I don't really get it.
I don't either.
All right, hang on. This is just ridiculous. How did you even get the link to this show, Claire? You can't hear me? Oh, no, Steve gave you the link. That's fine. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. So, okay. Now you just flustered me for a hot second. Okay, but I want to go to your comment earlier, and you're interrupting our deep front 7 talk. And you said you answered your question. Bill doesn't care what he say. He's not fussed. So why bother the effort to shut it down? The effort, the reason, my explanation. I understand where you're coming from. My reasoning for this would be to say, because it protects the ego of what is a fragile young quarterback. I think that it's a weird position, that the Mac is in right now. And I think that if Bill really, really was thinking that, not that you have to handle him with kid gloves, he's an adult, but he went through a really weird year last year. Now everyone's just having batting practice with him all season. If Bill could just shut it down, I think that would help him from a mental standpoint, because I think you're putting him behind the 8 ball before training camp even starts right now. That would be my take on that.
I don't disagree. Bearing in mind, all I've got is like this little thing to sort of say, to throw a quick message in. And it was just a case of, look at it from the perspective of Bill Belichick doesn't care what anybody thinks, what anybody's saying. Robert Kraft's like, Patriots are in the media. I'm sort of trying to look at it from that. It's not necessarily what I completely think about the situation. It was just throwing a comment out there to say it could be this kind of thing. It could be that sort of thing. So I'm with you. I agree. He should be supporting Mac, and I'm a Mac champion. So, really, I've crashed the party. Cool. It's like Thursday night. I've been on shows all day. I've literally only just come to shamelessly plug my own show, my own article, and my episode of Locked On Patriots that I've done today, because I wasn't very well on Tuesday, unfortunately. So I kind of had to cram everything in today. So I've literally.
Who was your last guest on the Clare Perspective podcast? Who was that again? I forget.
I did a show today.
Oh, who'd you have?
Okay, newsflash. Nobody knows this because it hasn't gone out there yet.
Breaking news.
So this is breaking news. Jerry Thornton of Barstool Sports was on my show today. So that should be out later, folks. So keep a sharp eye, as Mike Debate likes to say, for that. But I think Deuce was the one prior to that.
Yes.
Mike Dussault, sorry.
I love Mike Dussault.
Oh yes.
He's awesome.
Me too. He's fab. He was my first ever guest. So yeah, he's a big champion of him, and he's a big champion of me because of the whole PatsPropaganda.com thing. So yeah, my article went out on tight ends, so I'll save that though.
Yeah, please do. I really do want you to join us. I really do want you to join us that day, because I'm curious who you've had your eye on there.
I have got such extensive notes now because I was on Locked On today, and Mike Debate wanted to know about later round picks. So instead of kind of just regurgitating my article, I went and added extra. So he talked about my article and who was in my article, and then I gave another few names. So when it comes to tight ends in this draft, I have gone hardcore when it comes to research. Hard.
Oh, that's good. Well, you know what? Last year. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, Chris is.
Oh God, what do you say?
He's hilarious. First he gate crashed Cooper in the building, and she didn't crash the building. Chris,
I was invited in.
I invited her, but that cracked me up when I saw it. And then plug, Cooper.
Joel's keeping track of the Clare Perspective. I love it. It's a good show. I enjoy it.
Joel.
I always listen.
I had the opportunity to come and hang with you two guys on a Thursday night here. So I've had dinner and everything. Good.
Steve
sent me the link and I was like, oh, my Thursday evening. This is cool. Why would I not want to come and hang with you?
You asked me for the link. I didn't even see the comment. We've had a decent amount, so I didn't even see it.
Yeah, well, she said, send me the link. So I did. And then I didn't think she was going to show up because that was like 15 minutes ago.
So what do you think? What do you think, Claire? When you're on the show, everyone listens to Steve and I all the time. What do you, in terms of edge players? We're talking about front seven guys, edge players, linebackers. However you want to, whatever you're talking about for front seven. Mm-hmm. Give me your. I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here, okay? And so I don't want to fluster you, okay?
I know, yeah.
What's your higher needs? Like, what in your eyes, the Patriots for needs? Like, what do you see as a higher need? And do you think that anyone in the front seven would classify as a need?
See, you threw me in and I've literally entered in the worst possible subject for me, because what I didn't look at this year in the draft was edge guys and linebackers, because for me, there was so much more importance in regards to cornerbacks, tackles, and then there's so much tight endage that I was like, I had to spend so much time on it.
So just real quick, just to take a little pressure off you, okay? So
there is a linebacker I like. There is a linebacker I like.
Tackle, receiver, and corner, Steve and I have classified in some combination, however you want to rank them, as the top three. And we think you could kind of flip a coin for tight end, edge rusher, not to speak for you, Steve, but, like I'm paraphrasing, but in some manner of speaking, tight end, edge rusher for the fourth or fifth kind of need on this team. I think both you could make an argument for, because similar to tight end, Claire, which we will get to, edge player is a sneaky need given the current players on the roster and their contract and age situation. And so save the tight end thought, but who's the linebacker that you liked?
See, I've got to agree with you. Sorry, just backtrack to what you just said. I do agree with you. It is like a sneaky need.
Yep.
And that's kind of why I haven't really delved into it, just because of a time restraint. It's a case of you don't have time to watch all of everything. So this year I was really trying to go heavy in with like tackle and stuff, and then cornerback. And then because there was so much tight end this year, it was like, how can I not be in on the tight ends? But linebacker. There was a couple of linebackers. There's one linebacker who I have been told by my friend, and I then did go and look at him. So I can't take credit because Chudders did refer me to this guy, and he is a stud. And there's no way that the Patriots will get him unless they take him in the first round, and that's Jack Campbell. I can't remember where he's from, so I apologize.
Iowa.
Thank you.
Guy.
Another Iowa guy.
Iowa. Yes, and he's got real good football smarts. That I've got that written down on my notes. Super athletic. He was an award winner for something as well. So he's probably down as one of the really top linebackers. So not really sure if they'll get them. The other guy that I sort of spotted and was
I think you have a chance. I think you can get him on day 2. I don't think he's going to go in the first round, but
really,
okay. But not because I don't think he's a good player. I don't because I don't think he's a good player. I just think there's going to be other guys that are just going to be ahead of him. But I think he'll be. I think he'll be somewhere in that second to third round. So I think third round probably pushing it a little bit. But yeah, I think he'll be.
I really like him too, Claire.
And he's the kind of guy. He's the kind of guy that I could see Bill liking too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This is it. I mean, my friend was like, Chudders was like, just watch him. He's really good. And so I tuned into the bit of the combine, and I was like, he's a bit of a stud, so I can see why he likes him. But the guy that I spotted during the combine that I was quite into as a linebacker,
I was about to bring up, but go ahead.
He is from I don't know where he's from now either. I apologize everybody, I haven't got proper notes. I did literally just gate crash this. Drew Sanders.
Yeah, the Arkansas linebacker, that's who it is.
He didn't run the 40. He plays off the ball. He tweaked his hamstring, didn't he? But he's got nice movements. He looks really good. And I was like, I think he's my linebacker pick.
So he is my favorite linebacker in this class. I don't think he'll go in the first round either. Yeah, look at you and I. What the heck is going on here?
11 sacks, 39 pressures as a blitzer.
Yeah, and he again, here's the thing. I like Jack Campbell. He's a good player. This guy in Drew Sanders is long, explosive. He's rangy. He's versatile. If you remember, Claire, I'm not that sure that you heard it, but I know that Steve and I talked about this ad nauseum. Prior to free agency, one of the guys that I wanted them to get was Tremaine Edmonds from the Bills, who went to the Bears. And Lance Zierlein, the NFL.com analyst, actually compares Drew Sanders to Drew Sanders. Compares Drew Sanders to Tremaine Edmonds. And I think pairing him next to a guy like Juwan Bentley would be a terrific combo for that front seven. I would love that. And I think that you could get him in the second round. And I think that he would be a heck of a football player for this team.
See, I'm shocked that we are even I'm really shocked right now about this. Even more so than it's crazy. But this is the problem that I was having. I think, I responded to your tweet. That was it. And I was like, I'm so confused. And you were like, oh, it's draft talk. And it was like, no, I'm so confused because I want everybody. There is so many players this time, whether or not it's just because my draft kind of research, I've just gone so much deeper than I have. Because obviously I'm getting along my journey on podcasting and stuff. So I'm just getting deeper and deeper and deeper into the draft each year.
But correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to speak for you, but I think it was last year or the year before that you and I talked, and you were asking me why I love the draft so much. And I think you were just kind of getting into it. Was that 2 years ago, maybe?
It's going to be 2 years ago, because last year I kind of started to really
and we talked about it. And it's funny. And get ready for the worst emotional roller coaster of your life, because there's so many guys that you like, and you're gonna end up going home from the dance by yourself, and it's a frustrating time. But hey,
50 good players that you'd love to have. Yeah. You don't have 50 draft picks. So.
Exactly. This is it, Steve. And it's like, who do you want at 14? Well, I want a tackle because The offensive line really needs some work. So I want to tackle. Oh, yeah, but then we need a really big cornerback. And there's Gonzalez. He's like, oh, he's going to fly off the board anyway. And then it's like, oh, but I really like that linebacker, Jack Campbell. And I thought he might go in the first round. And then there's like about 14 tight ends this year that I would want. And they're in like the first, second, third, and fourth draft round. So it's just like there's so many. And now the wide receiver, I'm getting sold on the wide receiver. Because I was so anti-wide receiver before because I'm so into the tight ends that I was anti-wide receiver. But now it's like, Zay Flowers is really good. And the other guy, and they use his initials. He's got a double barrel name. What's his name? The top wide receiver this year.
Well, I'm sorry. I was getting a message from someone about the show. What did you ask?
You weren't listening to me. I could see it on your face.
The last 5 seconds.
Who's the top wide receiver this season? This year in the draft?
I mean, Quentin Johnson maybe from TCU.
No.
I mean, Zay Flowers, Boston College, JSN.
No,
JSN.
JSN. That's who I'm trying to think of.
Yep.
I got Zay Flowers, but JSN. Yeah, everybody's saying how great he is. So it's like pick 14. There's about 5 guys that I want now. But I've got to admit, you telling me about, be prepared for heartbreak. I already know this because no. 2 years ago, my draft crush was Pat Freiermuth, and I crushed hard on this dude. And there was no way the Patriots were going to get him, obviously, and the Patriots didn't get him. And I still follow his career now because I crushed so hard on him because he was so good that it's like whatever you throw at me after that is irrelevant because that was one of my biggest heartbreaks. So
I mean, I go back to one of these guys went out of the league in a flash, and one of them just signed a 1-year deal, and he's at the tail end. But I still remember my Sergio Kindle, Brandon Graham, crushes back. And Brandon Graham has obviously had a long time with the Eagles. Sergio Kindle came out of Texas, and I think went to the Ravens, and then he flamed out. I think after like 3 or 4 years. But
yeah, he
had a couple of knee injuries or something. But
yeah,
I could go through literally each year of guys that I just absolutely love. And sometimes, Claire, the fun time, don't even get me started on that.
This is why I was laughing. I was like, oh no, it's all going to hit the fan now. He shouted that.
Oh yeah, no, but but the best part is when they take a guy that you really, really put a lot of work into. Like I'm not super proud of this. Well, given how it turned out for one of the players I'm going to mention, but like I loved Rob Gronkowski. I was a little bit of a homer because I went to University of Arizona. I loved Brandon Spikes. I loved Aaron Hernandez coming out, and they end up taking all these guys. I think that was the same draft, and it was like I was like, holy crap, I nailed this! Like it's unbelievable. There was another guy in that class, if I pull it up, that was there. So you do get your heart broken more often than not. But it is exciting to kind of deep dive into these guys. But hang on, Claire, I don't want to derail the show too much because I do want
yeah.
We have a little bit of time. We have more time left. And we're just kind of diving into it right now.
Well, we were talking about linebackers. We mentioned a couple. I did
Drew Sanders and Jack Campbell. What's another guy, Steve? Please.
Well, I took a guy in my mock draft down later in the draft. I think it was round 6. Dorian Williams from Tulane.
Nice.
Another super athletic linebacker. I mean, he had excellent production at Tulane, but you're talking about a guy who runs a 4.4 in the 40, a 1.5, 10-yard split. He was a tackling machine. He was very good in coverage, and 22 pressures coming as a blitzer, 9 quarterback hurries, 7 hits, and 6 sacks. That's not bad at all.
What do you think, though, Steve? I mean, we're talking about, again, an athletic guy weighed in at 228. It's pretty light for a Bill Belichick linebacker.
Yep, he is. Yeah. But at the same time, I think at least initially with him, because I think they're pretty much set for this year. I think he's going to be a reserve guy at first. I think he'd end up being a core special teamer. And that's why I liked him in round 6, because, if you can play special teams, you have a job in the NFL. And, when you have a guy that's that kind of speed and athleticism at his, size, I think you have a career set out, at least in the beginning, of being on the special teams, and that's how you make the team as a rookie.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree. Claire and Steve, both of you, if they do draft a linebacker, I wouldn't expect it to be in day one. I'd be floored. I'd be shocked because I should say a middle linebacker. I could see an edge player. Okay, so someone who's not on the edge. I wouldn't expect to see day one, really even day two. But you could convince me depending on who was there. Again, I could see Jack Campbell or Drew Sanders being a Bill Belichick guy that he would just love to have in the heart of his defense. But do you think that do you think that it would be a good idea to have that athletic pairing with Bentley? But if Bentley's a 1-year guy, do you see them keeping him, or do you think they need to kind of replace him and have kind of the next captain middle of the defense? What do you guys think? I'll start with Steve.
I think he's going to be the next guy.
Okay.
I think Belichick loves him, and he's kind of that throwback linebacker that Belichick loves. He's always had those kind of guys. And last year, I thought he had his best season. Now, he's still not the most athletic dude, but I thought he moved much better last year than we've seen in the past.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Claire, what are your thoughts?
I was just Googling his age. That's why I wasn't looking. I was just Googling because I was really wondering, because it feels like he's been there for quite a while. So I was just Googling how old he was, because that seems to be he's 26.
Bentley?
Google says he's 26. Yeah.
Did you see his birthday? Will it be 20? Is he 26 or will it be 27?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't. I was just trying to sneakily look so that you weren't while Steve was talking. So
that's fine.
Yeah. But
no, it's fine. It's not. I mean, either way, 26, 27. He's
August 96. So he'll be 27.
So he'll be 27 when the season starts.
Yeah,
so,
that's fair enough. Yeah, he'll be 27. So
I think Bentley's coming off a really good year too. Like for him, for what he brings to the. I mean, I think we've all understood like what he brings to the table. Now we're not really expecting, a ton. But I thought he kind of. I thought 2 years ago I was worried about where he was kind of going, and I thought last year he kind of found his level and then brought it up a little bit too. I was impressed with his play overall last year.
Do you think
I thought last year they let him play a little more downhill.
Yep.
And that suits his game. I
100%.
Having him aggressive and playing downhill, I think that's what you have guys like him for. And you're not putting a 260-pound middle linebacker out there to drop back into deep coverage. I mean, that's not his game.
Yeah.
I know it's a completely different position, obviously, but do you think that the retirement of Devin McCourty is going to have any impact on like his role within the team internally? So even if perhaps he wasn't someone that they were looking at kind of for next year, now they don't have Devin, maybe he's someone that they need to kind of maintain. So when they're bringing these young guys in this year, next year, he's someone that is almost like a veteran presence with the stability of that kind of thing.
I think inside the locker room and in terms of communication on the back end, I think his loss is literally immeasurable to what they do. I think in terms of players, he's been really vocal, by the way, since being retired. It's kind of refreshing to hear some of these things, but I think he said it himself, and I think he's blowing smoke a little bit and doing his teammates, a good service. But he was talking about how his loss not being on the field actually could help, opposing offenses be a little more confused because they already knew where he is, and the other guys they have on the roster could be moved around and maybe surprised a little bit more. I am worried about that a little bit, and I think Bill's actions will kind of show. They were kicking the tires on Taylor Rapp, who went to Buffalo on a pretty small money deal. But they ended up bringing back Jalen Mills. I still haven't closed the door on Jalen Mills playing free safety. I don't know if they will, and maybe their actions during the draft and post draft and free agency. Maybe if they bring in more corners, I'll say okay, maybe we'll not. Right now, it's like they need the body at corner, but I still haven't closed the door on Jalen Mills because people forget his last year in Philadelphia was his best year at free safety. And he, so I think that's a good one, Claire. I'm not so sure about that. There is one more linebacker I wanted to bring up though too, and that's Henry To'o from Alabama. I mean, you got to talk Alabama guys. You have to. But and for people at wondering, I had to Google the pronunciation 100%. And I would just say this. He originally came out of De La Salle High School, which is, I don't know, for all the East Coasters there. It's out of California. It's one of the best high school programs in the entire country. He went to Tennessee. Then he ended up going to, Alabama. Athletic player. Actually, I think would be a really nice compliment to Bentley. He has enough wiggle. He's kind of a technician. He's a smart player. He's a savvy player. He plays with a lot of instincts. He has a good football mind. To me, he is someone that I could see these guys that we're talking about at linebacker. They all have the same thing in common. They're all smart football players. And then when you're going to be in the center of a Bill Belichick defense, he needs to know that you know where to be and where your other teammates are going to be and what their assignments are. It's incredibly important. So I just think he's worth mentioning.
No, I agree.
Absolutely.
He's definitely a name that I was like, oh, I remember that name because I've got a note on him from the combine and I've got that he's intelligent and got that circled, and fluid in coverage was another note I made in regards to him.
There you go. Taking notes. Are we talking lined paper or are we lined
Oh
paper
yeah, we're talking really
notebooks.
bad handwriting. Oh yeah.
Oh,
dude.
good. Steve, what do you got over there? Claire, I'm
Yeah,
impressed. I've never been more impressed.
I think he's extremely solid in pass protection, and he can cover running backs, tight ends, sometimes even the bigger wide receivers. He's not going to cover the Tyreek Hills or whatever. That you don't want him doing that, but he can run down the seam, sideline to sideline speed, something we've been talking about. He just covers a lot of ground, and I thought. I watched him in 2021, and I thought he played stronger in the middle against the run this year. He's not a big guy, but I thought he played the run better in 2022 than he did a year before. Yeah,
no, I totally agree. Is there someone that we haven't brought up? I mean, is there any is there any guy, Steve, kind of late that you had your eye on? Because I do want to mention they had it was, I have to look up his name. They had a SDSU player who's kind of a day 3 guy in for a visit yesterday. I know Phil Perry had it. I have it written down in my notes, but I don't have them in front of me. Let me pull it up. But there was a guy that they brought in from SDSU. Who I thought was kind of an intriguing player. I watched him last night. I hadn't watched him until yesterday evening because they had him in for a visit, so I was intrigued. Anyone day 3, Steve, that you kind of caught your eye?
Yeah, there was another guy, and his name's been all over the board. Nick Herbig from Wisconsin. Yep. I've seen him as like early day 2 pick. I've seen him in the middle. I've seen him way down as a 6th round guy, and I think he's gonna be a day 3 guy, Steve. I would say, I don't know if I'd go as far as like 5 to 7, but I think 4 to 6 is fair for him. Yeah, well, that's where during my mock draft, I was really surprised to see him still there, and he's 6'2", 240, and he played edge at Wisconsin. He's got good speed, 4.6, a 1.59 10-yard split. So that's really good. He's got excellent instincts. 26% of his career tackles at Wisconsin were for a loss. That was the one that stood out for me. I'm like, okay, this is a guy that definitely has a nose for the football. I think, he might play sparingly because I think he needs to get a little stronger. But, if you're looking at a guy day 3 and with his kind of instincts and, his kind of production, I think giving him a semi-redshirt year would be just fine.
Yep. It's Claire. I mean, you're welcome to pitch another prospect if there's someone that you had your eye on. If not, no problem. I'm just giving you the invitation.
I'm just looking down my list. To be honest with you, like I said, I didn't cover the linebackers and the edge guys significantly, except Sanders. He just stood out to me so much. I got a couple of notes. Oh,
okay.
sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, while you give a second, there's a guy that I was interested in, and I'm not surprised. This is not a late round guy. This is a day 2 guy, I think. But BJ Ojulari from LSU. I loved Aziz. His brother came out 2 years ago from Georgia. I loved him coming out of the draft. And his brother's not quite I would say the draft prospect his brother was. He's not going to be a first round player, but he's a great athlete and had tremendous production for LSU. And, he kind of jumps off the field. If you watch LSU, one of my favorite things about when you watch college football, and this happened with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, the linebacker for Notre Dame that went to the Browns. That was always my first tell with him. It's when you are watching a game and you hear the same defensive name over and over and over. It's not a cornerback. Yeah. You don't really necessarily want to hear that. Okay. Cornerbacks and offensive linemen, I don't want to hear your names. But if you're a front 7 guy and they keep saying, Ojulari with the tackle, Ojulari, makes the play, Ojulari in coverage breaks the pass, you hear the name over and over. That's the sign of a guy who's active and who's making plays. And it's one of my favorite things to do. If you're watching a college game and you keep hearing that name, you're like, this is someone to keep an eye on.
I have a question then.
Yes.
I've got it. It's only my notes, so it's in my handwritten notes. So he could be a 6th round guy for all I know at this point. But I've got a name, Lonnie Phelps. I haven't got where he's from.
Lonnie Phelps?
Nearly 6'3". He does a lot of different things, and he had a really good push-pull. Now, as I said, this is just my rough notes, so I'm just wondering. I don't know where he's from. I haven't got it down.
Man, you stopped me.
I'm trying to test you.
Kansas. I'm trying to see.
Okay. Is he any good?
And I haven't watched him. I'm totally transparent.
Yeah, I'm not aware of him, Claire. I mean,
he was just.
He wasn't on my radar, but 6'2", 245.
Yeah, at the combine he was 6'2" and 3/8. I love this. I really wish that they just give us the height. There's so many different heights for people. When I've been researching to write up, even especially the tight ends, and it's is he 6'3"? Is he 6'4"? Is he 6'5"? It's amazing the variations that you'll get of different guys.
So just for what it's worth for you, type if you. I mean, it doesn't work for every guy in the draft, especially the real, the real kind of deep. The deep guys late day 3. But if they went to the combine, if you type in whatever their player's name and then their draft profile, you can see all the exact combine measurements, which are, that's I know. What you want to go off of.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, that's what you're going off of. Okay. I was going to say.
Oh, yeah. 100%. You don't want to go off anything with that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's what you're going off. Okay.
100%.
Yeah.
Lance Zierlein, don't talk to me about that.
I just looked him up, Claire. Lance Zierlein, NFL draft analyst, he always does a really good job. He has down Phelps is a demon on special teams and possesses the qualities to become a very good rotational edge rusher.
Oh, there we go. Put him on the board. Alani Phelps, Kansas.
With the ceiling that has room for growth.
Okay. If they draft Claire, if they draft Alani Phelps, I am going to give you a shout out on Twitter. Say you called this pick, and I had nothing to do with this pick. But if Steve reads the profile, I'll watch. I'm going to watch him later. I just wrote him down so I can watch him later. And so that is. I mean, if he's a special teams demon, you said special teams demon.
Yeah, that's what.
I mean, look
at
I've got good senses. This is totally going off nothing but seeing him. This is just gut things. This is now. So yeah, look at me with my natural instincts.
Yeah. Yep.
And Zierlein also said, as a pass rusher, he's explosive and bendy with the ability to flatten and close to the quarterback.
Yep. I do want to mention this another guy too. one of the last guys I'll mention, and then we can guys can give some final thoughts. But Byron Young from Tennessee. I watched a lot of Tennessee football this year. I really enjoyed watching that program kind of put things together here. And Byron Young is a guy that I think Bill would be attracted to because he loves football. You can just see he brings a lot to the table, and he's a real twitchy athlete. I don't know if sometimes it comes off as man, he is just, he rips off the edge and he has that great bend. And sometimes it looks like he's got a lot of arms and legs everywhere. So I'm not saying he's polished, but I watched probably almost every single Tennessee game this year, and he really impressed me at some time. So Byron Young is a guy that I'll put on there. I think that he's again someone that I could see Bill be. I always think Bill is attracted to players, that are really, really smart about the game and really, really enjoy the game, because I know that he's smart and I know that he enjoys it. So he wants to be around similar players and coaches that are the same, obviously. So let's. I'm good with what I've said. Is there anyone that either of you want to mention?
No, I've exhausted my notes now.
exhausted the notes. Steve, anything for you?
At linebacker, no, I think we covered that.
Yep. Okay. Well, we'll wrap up now, I guess. Claire crashed the party. I love it. I brought a little spice. As Chris writes it in the comments, Claire's random player segment. So we'll have to do that again. That's very fun. Final thoughts from either one of you about the show. Or about the draft in general. We are 3 weeks out from today, Steve. We're probably a week away from doing our annual DM mock draft for the first round.
Yep.
So
that's close.
Yeah, we're getting there. This is the time of year. I'll start with my own final thoughts, and I'll go to each one of you. But final thoughts for the show for me is this is the funniest time of year for the draft. Is right about now. We're just about here where suddenly Anthony Richardson is a top 5 pick, and he might be because he has a huge bust potential, but geez, he's talented. And you went from him going into the late first round, when this whole thing started, to the mid first round, and now you're seeing him go in a top 3 because the Colts traded up, and I just think that's fascinating. There's guys like you said, everybody's a first round pick. There's only 31 of them this year. So, someone is inevitably going to be going day 2. I've also thought it was been interesting that we've seen a lot of Bijan Robinson to the Patriots, which I think is weird on some level. But I'll save that take for when we go to the running back. When we touch on running backs later. But again, it's a weird time of year for the draft. Everybody's a first rounder. There's a lot of risk. There's a lot of buzz, a lot going on. Claire, any final thoughts from you?
Well, like you said, the draft stock is a ridiculous thing, isn't it? 3 weeks ago, someone was a 6th rounder and now they're a first rounder. Okay, it's extreme, but their draft stock is ridiculous. Darnell Washington, the tight end, he's a great example of his draft stock just shooting up at the combine. But I'm so glad I gate crashed this, even though I know barely anything about the linebackers this year. I've learned so much, which is wonderful. I've agreed with Derek, which is shocking. So people better mark your calendars that me and Derek properly agreed on something, because this is starting to be very unusual.
It turns out we need to talk about the draft and we'll be lockstep.
This is it. It's amazing. And this was so much fun. I do appreciate that you let me kind of dive in and just spitball some different stuff and plug the fact that I've been working as much as I can and stuff like this on the draft as best I can from the UK. So I do appreciate that, guys. And I love talking to you two anyway. So it's so much fun. So how can I not want to do this on a Thursday night?
It's all good. It's all fun having you on. Steve, anything from you, bud?
Well, 5 minutes ago, you had me very excited when you started talking about Byron Young.
Really?
Yeah, because I drafted Byron Young in the draft, but he didn't play. He plays for Alabama. It was a defensive tackle. They had him listed as a tackle edge player, but I think he'd, be an interior guy.
We really didn't touch on any interior guys, and hand up, that's probably on me. Let me put it this way, Steve, and I'm glad you brought this up. Okay. I would be pretty shocked if they went interior defensive line in the first 2 days of the draft.
No.
So, but I think you can pretty much book them taking some kind of an interior rusher because they almost always do. And if they don't take one, I'll bet I will throw down $20 to anybody who wants to write it in for charity. Charity your choice. If they don't take at least a combination of two day 3 or undrafted interior defensive rushers, I will donate $20 to anybody who writes in his choice.
Okay, there you go.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, in my first mock, I had them taking 2 later in the draft. Colby Wooden out of Auburn.
Yep.
And then Byron Young from Alabama. So
yep, I should have mentioned him, but I didn't really deep dive on that too much. But next week, Steve, what did we say, Steve, for next week? Did we say we were going to do offensive linemen next week? I think.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Ooh, nice.
I think we talked about quarterbacks, running backs, offensive linemen, and then we were going to go receivers and tight ends the following week.
Yep.
Yeah, because we'll briefly sorry, I've had a puppy I rescued about a month ago, and for some reason she keeps licking underneath this coffee table, and I cannot figure out what she's got under there. So that'll be interesting to see what she's found. But I think we'll briefly touch on running backs because I do think that the third down running back role is certainly in the conversation. Certainly with some of the Bijan Robinson talk. There's Jahmyr Gibbs from Alabama. Quarterback, maybe not so much, but depending on who you ask, I don't know. Maybe Max shipped off tomorrow. Apparently, based on some of the national guys, Bill's driving him to Logan as we speak. So I don't know. But I do think I don't know if guard necessarily will be or interior lineman for offensive line, but I think we'll focus more on tackles because certainly a discussion to be had there. So we will do that next week, and maybe even Claire can stop in. We'll talk about that. Maybe having Claire if she wants. Now that I saw that she has an actual notebook, I'm pretty pumped.
Oh, do I have your respect now? Is that it? This is the thing that you now respect.
Hey,
my
I'm not.
opinion.
I have never ever once claimed to be like the be all end all draft guy. There's a lot of guys that I like to listen to. I just enjoy the process a lot, and I like watching some of these prospects because just like they might have a player in for a top 30 visit, like Patriots had Anthony Richardson. I think for a visit, or they worked him out, or whatever it was. Just because they're not going to take a guy right now, you don't know if they're going to be available down the road, or you don't know if you play them, if you pick up on some kind of tendencies. There's a lot that goes into the process. So it's just because they're having a player visit doesn't mean that they're definitely going to take him. I mean, but I just enjoy the whole process and watching the Tetris puzzle get put together because it is fascinating. And that's honestly how that's how you get to, build really good teams. If you draft well consistently, you will have a good roster. Look at the Eagles, look at the Bills, look at the Chiefs, look at how they've drafted. Obviously there's a couple of outstanding factors and I'm missing some teams, but it's something to consider. Anyways, guys, I'm going to wrap up the show. Thank you so much for all the comments. We had a ton of activity today, which was fun. Again, I'm Derek. I'm Derek Havens. We got Steve Balestrieri and Clare Cooper coming in as a guest today. Steve and I are both PatsFans.com bloggers. I want to thank everyone for listening. Please be sure to subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. Like us, share us, leave us a review. It keeps us high in the rankings to have other Patriots fans find us. And be sure to check out all the great content on PatsFans.com. We will see you guys next week. Talk to you then.